Jinger Duggar reveals identity crisis led to her freedom. The Duggar family has been involved in many controversies over the years. However, some of the family members have found a way out and escaped the family and the lifestyle they were forced to live for so many years. One of those people is Jinger Duggar. Jinger has a new book, and in it she talks about how she had an identity crisis that helped her find her way out. Here is what you need to know. Jinger Duggar talks finding herself. Jinger Duggar has a new book called People Pleaser, Breaking Free from the Burden of Imaginary Expectations. She said the book has that name because that is what she saw herself as for too many years. While promoting the new book, Jinger talked about what her life was like until she had an identity crisis. I realized I was so worried about what other people thought about me that it kind of led me down not the best path in my thoughts, Jinger explained via PUL. She said she would worry that she was fat, even though she wasn't. She said these thoughts began when she was a teen. Thankfully, I had awesome people who came around me and helped me out of that struggle of just struggling with an eating disorder, she said. Jinger said that these doubts also caused her to become a people pleaser. She felt she couldn't speak up for herself and was just trying to make everyone else happy. 2 years into her marriage, she had an identity crisis that made her realize that things had to change. Jinger married Jeremy in 2016. Whenever we were first married, I remember just being afraid of almost everyone. Afraid to trust them, Jinger said. She realized she was in an unhealthy place and didn't know what to do. Jinger Duggar says Jeremy helped her out of it. However, she said this had nothing to do with her husband. She said that Jeremy was there to help her, and he wanted nothing but the best for her. We were a couple of years into marriage really when I realized I think that jolt of like, okay, wow, who am I? She said. Jinger said she felt like a clone of who people wanted her to be. However, she felt it was time to show how she really feels about certain topics. She, at first, hid it from her husband because of the religious teachings of Bill Gothard. She finally broke free of that. I think he really helped me to grow in that area because he would say, I don't know who Jinger is. I would hear what you're thinking about. What things do you like? What things do you not like? Please tell me if I do anything that annoys you. Tell me, Jinger said. That gave me so much freedom to be able to open up and be vulnerable and then to be able to build genuine relationships. Jinger Duggar has always been known as one of the more independent-minded members of the Duggar family. Growing up under the strict rules of the Institute in Basic Life Principles, IBLP, she spent her early years adhering to the expectations of modesty, obedience, and unquestioning faith that defined her upbringing. However, in a recent and deeply personal revelation, Jinger shared that she experienced an identity crisis, a pivotal moment that ultimately led to her freedom. For years, Jinger wrestled with an internal conflict that she could not fully articulate. As a child, she was taught that strict adherence to the rules would bring favor in God's eyes, while stepping outside of them would lead to spiritual peril. I truly believed that if I did everything right, God would bless me. But if I stepped out of line, even in the smallest way, I feared I would face His wrath, she confessed. This fear dictated her every action, from the way she dressed to the way she thought about the future. When she married Jeremy in 2016, Jinger's world slowly began to expand. Jeremy, a former professional soccer player turned pastor, encouraged her to explore her faith with a deeper sense of personal conviction. He challenged the rigid beliefs she had grown up with and urged her to study the Bible for herself, rather than relying solely on the teachings of the IBLP. It was during this period of self-exploration that Jinger encountered her identity crisis. For the first time, I asked myself, who am I really? Am I simply following these rules because I was told to, or because I truly believe them? She recounted. This period of questioning was both liberating and terrifying. She feared that re-examining her childhood faith would unravel everything she had ever known. Yet, as she dove deeper into her own study of Scripture, she began to realize that much of what she had been taught was rooted in fear rather than biblical truth. Ginger's identity crisis reached its climax when she began to distance herself from the strict teachings of Bill Gothard, the controversial founder of IBLP. She recognized that much of her upbringing was based on legalism, rules created by man rather than divine commandments. "I was raised to believe that wearing pants, listening to contemporary Christian music, or even having personal dreams outside of marriage and motherhood were all forms of rebellion," she explained. "But when I looked at Scripture, I didn't see these rules. I saw grace. I saw freedom." This realization allowed Jinger to slowly embrace a new perspective. She began making choices for herself, ones that reflected her newfound understanding of faith, rather than the fear-driven doctrine of her past. She started wearing pants, something unthinkable in her earlier years. She explored different worship styles and allowed herself to enjoy the simple pleasures of life without guilt. Most importantly, she no longer lived in fear of divine punishment for stepping outside of the rules. Jinger acknowledges that breaking away from the IBLP mindset was not easy. It was a process that involved painful introspection and even moments of doubt. She worried about disappointing her parents and the community that had raised her. Yet, as she embraced her new freedom, she found a deeper and more personal relationship with God, one not based on fear, but on love and understanding. Since stepping away from the rigid beliefs of her past, Jinger has used her platform to share her journey with others. In her book, Becoming Free Indeed, she opens up about the struggles she faced in deconstructing her childhood faith and finding her true identity. Her story has resonated with many who grew up in similar fundamentalist circles, inspiring them to question, explore, and ultimately embrace a faith that is their own. Today, Jinger is more confident than ever in who she is. While she still holds to her Christian faith, she does so in a way that allows for personal growth and genuine conviction rather than blind adherence to man-made rules. "I finally feel like I know who I am, not just as a Duggar, not just as a wife or a mother, but as Jinger. And that is the greatest freedom I have ever known." Her journey serves as a powerful reminder that faith should never be about fear or control, but about love, grace, and the ability to seek truth with an open heart. Jinger Duggar's journey to self-discovery and freedom has been a long and transformative one, far from the image that many fans were familiar with during her early years in the public eye. In a candid interview, Jinger shared the struggles that led her to finally break free from the restrictive ideals that had once defined her life. What she uncovered in her quest for personal autonomy was a powerful awakening, the discovery of her true self. Growing up in the Duggar family, Jinger's life was always in the spotlight. Known for their conservative values, strict family rules, and strong Christian beliefs, the Duggars' world seemed carefully curated to promote purity and submission to authority. For years, Jinger, along with her siblings, was bound by a set of expectations that encompassed everything from their wardrobe choices to their opinions on relationships and gender roles. At the age of 19, Jinger entered into a marriage with Jeremy Vuolo, a former professional soccer player turned pastor. The couple's courtship was scrutinized by millions, with cameras documenting every step of the process, from their chaste dating to their eventual wedding. To many, their relationship epitomized the ideals of the Duggar family: traditional, faith-based, and obedient to the rules set forth by their upbringing. However, beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect marriage, Jinger was facing an internal battle. She had been raised in an environment where questioning her faith or her place in the world wasn't just discouraged, it was considered a threat to her salvation. The idea of challenging the beliefs and practices that had defined her life for so long felt impossible. Yet, as the years passed and she became a mother, Jinger began to wrestle with the tension between the life she had been taught to lead and the woman she was becoming.